Welcome to the AXPONA Audio Insider Podcast. My name is Lenny Florentine, and today I'm joined by TJ Goldsby from Axis Audio, who is representing Gauder Acoustics in the U.S. And now this is an awesome speaker company if you guys aren't familiar with them. TJ, what's up, man?
How you doing, Lenny? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We're going to have a good time. We've known each other for a little while now, which always makes it fun to do these podcasts with somebody that I hang out with at these shows and stuff. So I'm excited to learn a lot about this speaker line. Not only are we going to talk about, some of the current products that are on the market, which are really good products. We're going to be talking about the new Elargo speakers, which should be out at the time you guys see this podcast. So it's very exciting that we get to talk about a brand new product. Every episode of this podcast, TJ, we have a brand new product that usually is kind of just dropping, or we hint to something that's not talked about yet. So I'm very excited when we can, break into something new. But before we get started, give me like a history of the brand for people who aren't familiar with it or who've never listened to the speakers. I've actually had the pleasure of listening to them at the show and personally, but just give everybody like a history of the brand, where they're out of, and just kind of break it down for them.
Okay, Gauder Akustik started in the late 90s, around 97, I would say, in Stuttgart, Germany. And the product line is through and through 100% manufactured in Germany, all German components. The gentleman that started the company, Dr. Roland Gauder, he's a physicist, so he's taking a uniquely different approach to speaker design. He's done some really unique things, and he has some really awesome tools available to him, being an alumni of the University of Stuttgart, which actually houses the largest supercomputer in the world. Now, this is a town where you have some really big German auto manufacturers, Porsche and Mercedes-Benz being two of them. They all get to share this supercomputer. So we have like this mind think, these guys that design these things. Roland's different. He's designing speakers, and so it's a really cool way of implementing his philosophy into a product, which happens to be loudspeakers, which is his passion.
I mean, I'm glad you can say all these names of these German towns and whatnot, because I butcher every time. So that's impressive in itself.
Trust me, I had to practice it a few times. Roland and the team at Gauder Akustik, they called me out on it a few times. No, it's Stuttgart. So hopefully I got it right that time.
I think we're good now. You yourself, before we kind of get into the products and everything, let's talk a little bit about you. Yeah. So you're with Axis Audio, which is a big distributor in the U.S. It's amazing if you guys haven't heard of them. And I know a lot of people who might be watching this, they're not as familiar with the distributors or familiar with the brands.
Right.
But you've been in the hi-fi industry for a long time as well. So give me a little history, like what got you into hi-fi, maybe like what your first system was. Like tell me about like your relationship to the hi-fi industry.
And I grew up, I had an older brother who was big into music, and so at a young age I got into music. And when I was around 6 years old, which is a long time ago, my parents bought, at the time was, I guess, an upper end for that time period audio system. And just, from the gadgets, the knobs, and then just getting to hear this music kind of larger than life, it got me hooked like at a very young age. And so music was always my thing growing up, and anything related to music. And as I got older, of course, I wanted my own stereo system. I couldn't listen to mom and dad's stereo system anymore. I had to have my own. So, of course, it was a Technitrack system. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s. So, that was the jam back then. And throughout the years, I would upgrade components and things like that. So I got the bug again early on. And then when I finally got to college, I was studying to go, oddly enough, if you can believe it, if you've ever talked to me, you would never know this, but I was trying to go into the medical field to some degree, and I actually got a job at a Circuit City. And this is like the mid-90s.
Oh, that's when Circuit City was the place to get your hi-fi.
They were
huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, that was like, it wasn't the Best Buys of the world. There was no online, or very little, depending on what time in the 90s it was. And Circuit City was where all the hi-fi brands were.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And day one I started, I had to wear a blazer. I'm glad I'm in the position that I am now. We can dress a little bit more cash now, but back then we had to wear the blazer. We had to be all prim and proper. We had to talk about the 30-day low price guarantee, and just bombard people with that sort of thing. And it was a fun time. And that's where my career in the audio business, and it kind of segued into AV. It segued into custom integration. I've been all over the map with anything that has to do with speakers, electronics, audio, video, you name it. And as the years progressed, I eventually moved from where I'm originally from, from Memphis, moved to Nashville. I've lived in Nashville since early 2000. I worked for a great retailer in Nashville for, the entire time I've lived here. And then opportunity came knocking, and I had an opportunity to jump on the other side of the industry and really get back into what I was most passionate about, and that's the 2-channel audio, the hi-fi. Doing all of the other stuff, the custom integration, all that. It was fantastic, but it wasn't necessarily what I could always get behind and say, this is what I am into. Now I'm back to that, and I'm doing what I love and doing it from a different perspective.
It's an amazing thing how everybody progresses in this industry, and a lot of people's stories are similar. It's so interesting. You get your first system, you end up somehow working in a hi-fi retailer for, depending on the time period, that you grew up in, and then you kind of build, and it's like a passion that just sticks with you, like it is for me. That
right.
It's just something that you enjoy, and you just you're growing with. So it's just so cool to hear stories like that, especially like when you mention something like nostalgic, like Circuit City gets me, because when I was, I'm probably a little bit younger than you, just a smidge, but that was one of the big stores when I was growing up. So that was really cool. So Gauder Acoustics is, before we get in, because I want to talk about the new product. I think that's what I really want to talk about, because nobody's really got to experience this yet. So let's get in to these new speakers. Tell me all about it, because look, I have tried some of these speakers, and the quality of craftsmanship on these speakers is amazing. You can tell, they are heavy. All the components of the speaker are high quality. Or the speaker terminals are, I always look at stuff like that. That's the stuff that I'm into. When you open up a speaker and you get to get that unboxing experience, and you get to kind of touch everything for the first time, and you can tell that the stuff is quality. So that is my experience with them, but I can't wait to hear about the new line. So tell me a little bit about these.
It's called Elargo. That's
the Elargo line.
Yes.
Hey, see, I can pronounce that.
Yeah, it's easy, right? Yeah. Stuttgart.
Never gonna happen.
Yeah. So Elargo, they're starting off with 2 tower models. I think they're going to finish out the entire line with, I hope, a bookshelf/stand mount and a center channel. And this is one unique thing that I really like about Gauder in general, is all of their series that they do produce a center channel for each of the series. So this can transcend to the AV customer. This is a well-rounded lineup from the most entry-level series all the way up to the top-end series. So the Elargo series is going to kind of nestle in the middle, if you will. You have Axponna, you have Capello, Elargo will fit there, and then you'll have Berlina, and then the Dart series. The Elargo series, as far as what's available right now, you have the Elargo 100, basically a beryllium tweeter, a 7-inch mid-range, and dual 7-inch woofers. The Elargo 200 plays on that same premise, but now, as opposed to the 2 7-inch woofers, you get 2 9-inch woofers. The cabinet is obviously a little larger, and they both have just amazing plinths. The stance on the speakers are amazing. The speakers just look meaningful. They've got a subtle sleekness to them, but they've got a little bit of mean to them, and I love the way they look. Come in 2 finishes. I hope they'll come in more, but your standard lacquer black and a lacquer rosewood, which is really, really unique. It's a really awesome grain.
If you were going to say like one thing that these speakers did better than anything else, like it's like some speakers, maybe they're just really highly efficient, or maybe they're really good in the mid-range or the highs or the bass. Like, is there something that stands out with these speakers from the experience standpoint, the listening experience that you would say?
I think the thing that I tell people a lot when it comes to the bass response is just focus. It's some of the most focused bass I've ever heard in a loudspeaker. Some speakers, they require a lot of setup to really get them dialed in, and we know that this is all room dependent. We get that. But these speakers just pinpoint bass just like no other speaker I've ever listened to, and I've listened to a bunch. I've sold a lot of different brands over, my time on the retail side, and this speaker is just uniquely different in its presentation of bass. The mid-range is absolutely flourishing, and it's just an accurate speaker, and dialing them in is almost a cinch, and just a big, beautiful wall of sound. And they can get aggressive when you need them to get aggressive, and they will dial back and be as elegant as you need them to be, depending on what you're listening to. And it's funny, their motto, it's a newer motto, but it makes sense. They've started to say, don't let your loudspeaker tell you what type of music you like. And I think this kind of holds true to them, because their products, from the most entry level all the way up to the top end, they're just so forgiving and revealing on any type of music. You know what type of music I like. I listen to some pretty crazy out there stuff, but being a drummer, and but I like the jazz and all that sort of thing. And they just work really, really well on anything. This tells you anything. I had a pair of another model from another series here that we were breaking in for some reviews. I would come home every day. My wife, who never listens to music at all, she was down in the listening room every day listening to what she wanted to listen to. And it caught her attention so much. And I think she has the bug now. When those speakers had to leave, she was none too pleased. So
and you don't want to cross her.
She's still a little sore about it, but we'll get back there. We'll get some Elargos to take the place, so we'll be good.
I think that's a really important thing with speakers. And wait, let me clear this up. Does that mean at Axpona I can listen to something that I want to listen to on these speakers in your room?
Absolutely. I would absolutely encourage you to do it. And you'll probably run into Roland, and Roland is a classic rock fan. He will jam classic rock all day long. I tend to, want to throw some Bob James on there, a nice live recording. But then, when the doors are shut, we're going to put on something like, crazy like Whitechapel, or, something crazy like that.
Yeah, I'll try not to come by during the day, because usually when I get to a room to listen to something, my playlist will immediately clear it. I don't want to do that to you.
That's okay.
But that's very exciting to hear that they work really well with a large variety, really any music. Like, that's a big deal, because a lot of speakers don't really do that.
Right.
If somebody was kind of entering into the Gauder Akustik speaker line, what would that entry level be?
Entry level would be the Arcona 40. It's a stand mount / bookshelf speaker. Basic black or white. They keep it very, very simple in that series. On purpose, because they're trying to keep the cost low, and they're really trying to keep the performance really high. And what's significant about that series is, for as big and bold of a sound as you get, the speakers are oddly small. And this works out really well in a situation where, there's no one that wouldn't be able to use this product, because it would fit in just about any space, and it's still big enough to fill a very large room. We see this with a lot of speakers where the speaker may be over the top large, and that really cuts down, who that potential buyer could be. And I think what Gauder has really done with their entire product line, and a lot of this has to do with their crossover design, it really goes back to being able to allow this speaker to be very, very small, but play very big and articulate. With the Arcona 40, you're looking at a retail price of just under $6,000 for a pair of those speakers.
And I think that's a really good price point to come in at. So I was actually discussing this the other day with Tom, and when me and Tom were talking about this, we were kind of like, you have that like entry level speaker market, like it's a graduation system, like it's like a level up type thing. Yeah. So like you might start, people start with like basic entry level things, and then as they graduate, that like I think we came up with maybe like that 4,000 to 8,000 range is like the next real step into hi-fi from maybe that $2,000 price point, and that's just a really good price point to come in at a hi-fi product. And getting that entry level into Gauder Acoustics at that level is really good, because like it's a high-end speaker brand, and to be able to get in at that price, in that entry level hi-fi price point is just amazing. Now,
yeah, it's critical in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that opens it up to a lot more people. So, I just wanted to emphasize that. I thought that was important because, everybody may not be able to get the price points of the higher end models or the new models or whatever, but that one, which I think is the one that I've actually listened to before, that I had. Yeah, and they were amazing speakers, and to be able to get something like that in that price point, that opens it up to a lot more people who can get in to the brand and try it out, which they will get more speakers from Gauder because they're just amazing. So, I mean, I thought it was a really good entry level, for me to try it, to hear what the brand sounds like, because I think it kind of gives the profile that the brand will have, and you can grow up. And of course, listening to the higher end ones at the shows in the past, at the past AXPONA, you just you're blown away a lot more the higher you go up. Of course, that's how this hobby works. But if you were to say, so we have the new product coming out, what would you say the most influential product that they have or have had is?
Oh, wow. There's quite a few speakers that are pretty amazing. The Capello series, which up until Elargo was the most recent series. The Capello 100 is just an absolute gem of a speaker, because the price point in which it sits in the marketplace, the performance is absolutely over the top. It's like, for most people, it would be game over. And it's a relatively small speaker. That's the speaker, by the way, that I was breaking in here that my wife fell in love with. So, it's
a really nice looking speaker. I'm looking at it right now. It's an amazing looking. Like, I love the way they do the drivers, and they keep the looks it's interesting because they keep the looks very consistent through a lot of the lines, I've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of unique. Like, a lot of companies change the looks dramatically throughout the lines, but I think that's interesting because if you do have one of the lines, and let's say you have a pair of bookshelves and a center channel speaker, and you want to go 5-channel, but you want to take those bookshelves, put them in the back, but maybe you want to upgrade to the next speaker up, it's going to kind of get the same look, which is a great path to take people on. Yes. So that, because look, it happens. Like you get a pair of speakers that you like, and maybe you want to add more, and maybe it's not a theater aspect, but that's a very popular case scenario. But maybe you want to do an AB speaker, and you want them to look pretty close. And I think a lot of them, have that. Whoa, I'm looking at some really big one now.
What are you looking at? What's the model?
The Berlina.
Yeah, the Berlina. That is an awesome line. That is.
Oh my gosh! What? This is amazing.
Are you looking at the RC11?
I hope so. I was looking at the RC11.
Yeah, that is a crazy large speaker. I mean, it's a very big speaker. That series is really unique, and what they've done with that series and also their dark series, but we'll start with Berlina. Berlina is unique in the fact that they actually use a wood rib construction. So basically, it's routed out, CNC'd blocks of wood, if you will, and they're all the same. And what they do is they start with a plinth, then there's a damper, rib, damper, and they stack it as high as they need it to go. And we all know in the industry that opposing forces, can cancel out resonances and things of that nature. So that's the whole premise of the Berlina, and also the Dark. The Dark uses a different material, but with the Berlina, it's this wood rib construction, all held together with tension rods internally. It's pretty crazy how they build the speakers. Touring the factory and actually getting to see some of these being built, it's pretty cool. It's very cool.
Did you get to see that one?
Yeah, I've been to the factory a couple of times.
Oh my
I've got
gosh!
pictures. I'll send you pictures of these speakers in different stages of manufacturing.
Oh, great! I'll make sure I put them
cool.
over us talking, so that people can actually see the factory.
It's very cool.
Is that the highest end speaker that they make?
It's not. It's the Dark Series, and where the Dark Series differs, they still use the rib construction, but now they go to aluminum. Did you have the Dark Series at AXPONA last year? We did. We had the Dark 250, and that was in our largest room, and that was on the 16th floor, and that was that's an absolute showstopper. And that speaker is very unique within that particular series because that one comes standard with a diamond tweeter as well as a diamond upper mid-range, and all German-made drivers. And it's a very, very different product all the way around. It sets itself apart within the Dark Series, which is still a fantastic series all the way around. We have a pair of Dark 100s right now that are on the tour circuit, going to different dealerships. And dealer that currently has them right now is just over the moon, and they're actually bringing on the line, and they don't want to give the Dark 100s back anytime soon. So I've got to fight them.
I mean, I don't blame them at all. The ones that were AXPONA last year were just amazing. I remember like that room. You guys, if you go to AXPONA, you have to see this room because it was just a great time. But I'm I'm going. So the Dark 100s, and I'm not a centimeter type of person. I don't know.
Yeah.
124 centimeters. I don't know what that equates to.
Convert centimeters to inches. That's usually me.
Is that how you figure?
Exactly. I try to sound smart, but I have to hold on, and that's it.
Okay, but the Dark 750.
Yeah.
Is 201 centimeters.
It's a very big speaker.
Did you see this at the factory, or are we going to get to see a picture of this?
I saw these in play. I actually saw them in a state of manufacture.
Really?
At the beginning of the year. And then I actually got to see the finished product in Munich.
I'm going to figure this out.
Just say it's big.
I think it's taller than me. Yes, it is. It's almost 7 feet. Almost 7 feet tall. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I know that is not the topic that we probably got into, but when I started digging around on the website, and I've seen these speakers in person, how good they really look, and to know that there's one that's like 7 feet tall just amazes me.
Yeah, and what's crazy is there's only 4 pairs in existence right now, partly due because the actual diamond mid-range that's actually used in that speaker, it's a very large mid-range driver. It's very delicate and very difficult to manufacture, and so I think they actually break more than survive in the manufacture process. And so it's a very painstaking process to manufacture that diamond mid-range.
So tell me about that.
I don't know a whole lot about it other than the fact that I've actually seen it as it sets in the Dark 750. It's actually in its own pod. So the tweeter, which is also diamond, the mid-range, which is, of course, diamond, those are set into its own aluminum pod, if you will, and then that's placed into the front of the speaker.
And this is real diamond?
It's a synthetic diamond, of course, so it's man-made, synthetic diamond.
I mean, still.
it's not anything that's, grown by De Beers or anything like that. I mean, this is a specialized process, and it is legally diamond.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is just wild. I mean, I think that just, says something about the craftsmanship and, the build quality behind the whole brand. So you kind of see it from the entry of the brand all the way up to the speaker where there's only 4 of them in the world.
Yeah.
That there's just a high quality consistency between all of it. And, with all these products in these lines, and, this is something hi-fi is, I think it's really growing right now. And I think we've seen that the past couple of years. We're starting to see younger people get into it, which is very important. That's one of my goals, is to help get, a new generation into hi-fi and figure out how we can, expand this hobby to them.
Right.
But where do you see the hi-fi industry in like 10 years?
Oh, wow. That would be a tough one to answer. Just the way that I'm into it, it's like a day-to-day kind of thing. And it's always a new adventure, of course, being in the sales side of things. Wow, to look that far into the future, that's a really tough one for me. I'm going to spin it back to you. What do you think?
So I think the time we're in right now, and I want to look at like the past 5 years, right? So, and I know every year everybody says, oh, vinyl's coming back, or it's growing, or it's outperforming, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, and that is, as a niche of this, right? That's a way that a lot of musicians and artists and bands are able to generate additional revenue in the market that we're in. I mean, I'm sure that they're not making a ton of money from streaming. Touring isn't what it probably used to be. This is really helping that market. And it's cool. It's a cool collection thing. It's physical. It's tangible.
Yep.
And, there's a lot of people that have vinyl collections that don't have a turntable. Like, that's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's really a thing. And,
it's a shame. We'd love to sell them a turntable. We've got a great turntable line, but that's another story for another day.
Another story for another day,
yeah.
And I think that there's so much room for growth because everybody jumps right to, like, when you mention hi-fi to them, oh, yeah, vinyl's coming back and all. But look, it's not just vinyl. It's CDs. Like, CDs are much bigger now than they were a couple of years ago.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Right? And streaming, of course, is huge. And people, I think, are starting to realize that, like, when they're, if they're not into hi-fi or they have, like, a starter system, I think they're starting to learn that if, as you make that better or as you get something that's more quality, that the sound will get better. And I think we're seeing people kind of venture in more than they have in the past, right? So, like, 5 or 10 years ago, it was, I want the, Bluetooth speakers, and I want all this convenience. And now it's kind of breaking away from the conveniences because they're so mass market now. Everybody's had it, whatever. And not that there's not a place for that. But I see more and more people who are kind of getting into the hobby. And younger people, and I think the younger people is going to be the key, right? Because these are people getting their first hi-fi systems or, just kind of breaking in. And I think that's really important. So, whatever we can do to kind of elevate that, because we don't want that to go away. Right. We want that to grow. And, a lot of people say, like, headphones are going to be bigger. And, I'm not a headphone guy myself, but, that seems to be a growing market. But I think the traditional 2-channel hi-fi systems, I think that market is just, got so much potential if we can reach the right people and, in the correct, the right ways. And I think the theory that I give of when I want to come to your room and listen to what I want to listen to, I think, when people are playing, that kind of stuff that, everybody listens to, I think that is going to make this better, at least for people like somebody that comes for Axpona for the first time, They're coming to their first hi-fi show. They've never been to one before.
Right.
And maybe it's not the music that they listen to, but there's a lot of rooms that play really good music. And especially when people take requests, it's like, what do you want to hear?
Right.
And, that's what we've always done in the past. It's a party, right? It's just a party. Come and have fun at the party.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I think there's a lot of room for it to grow, but I think it's concentrating and reaching the right people. Yeah. How'd you throw that back on me? You're such a salesman with your return your question of a question. I should have came.
I would have to add to that. I mean, it's what I call obviously it's like hooking people. How do you get them hooked? And it starts with different ways to market, because I mean, this industry, we've marketed the same way for so long, and we're all talking about new inventive ways to try to market. We're working really hard to try to find our own way to do that. And then, you kick it off to, the dealers that carry these brands like Gauder Akustik or any of the other brands that we carry, or any other brand for that matter. And, it really takes that special salesperson to really engage with that person. If that person walks through the doors, and they need to have that good experience. And I think the good salespeople are the ones that are really going to get those people hooked, get them turned on to this hobby, this thing that's going to be a force in their life. And then it's game on from there. And then, whatever their budget dictates, or however deep, however they get into it, they will decide, but they need to get hooked.
Yeah, I think that you hit it there. And I think, everybody's trying to think of what that way is to reach new people. And I'm very, that's something that's very interesting to me, because, I spend a lot of time with that. I am an unconventional person. If you do,
you don't say.
You've hung out with me. It's always a crazy time.
Yeah, it's a good time.
And, I think that's what's enjoyable about shows like AXPONA. We just, it's a great experience. And so you have other lines, and we won't get into the other lines today.
Right.
But tell me about the system that you had last year at AXPONA. Like, just lay it out, because it was really cool.
Okay, so our main two rooms that actually had Gauder Akustik product, those rooms were next door to each other. Start with the room that had the Dark 250s. We had paired those speakers up with another brand that we carry, Solution. I'll have to bring that up. But we had a new Solution rig, which would consist of their brand new line stage preamp, their phono pre, obviously a couple of mono blocks. It was a phenomenal system. That played for half the day. And then another brand that we also represent, Absolare, that played the other half of the day. And those speakers being presented slightly different because of the electronics, it was just an amazing sound. And I think we were able to, in that room, give people some slightly different flavors, which is nice. And people would come back because they would want to hear the other combination. And we just kind of kept it engaging, and people were very impressed, I think, getting to see the looks on people's faces. They were just like, okay. First, they wanted to know, okay, what is this brand? Because it was not as known as it is now. It's getting better every day. And people were just amazed. The other room that we had, we scaled it down. We actually had the Capello 100s, the ones that were in my house that my wife's so upset about that she's missing. We had those set up with actually a smaller Solution setup, which was a brand new series that they just launched, that we were able to launch at AXPONA last year. And for the more budget-friendly system, it got a lot of praise. We got a lot of high marks for that room, and people were thoroughly impressed. And they would go back and forth, and they were trying to figure out what they liked better. And, both were impressive in their own rights, but definitely different price points. So we wanted to show opposite ends of the spectrum with both lines.
And I know it's early, but, we got AXPONA coming up.
Right.
And So do we have any plans in the work? Anything in the works yet?
Man, we're starting to work on the guys at Gauder. I'm going to pitch a couple things to them, tell them what the vision is, and we'll see how it goes. So we've got some cool stuff solidified, but we're working on some other stuff, and we're ever expanding our reach and what we're wanting to do at AXPONA. We really believe in all the brands that we represent, and so that's going to take us growing in AXPONA and bringing on more rooms. So there'll be some spectacle. How about that?
I'm excited to hear these new speakers. It's going to be a good time. And I mean that's I appreciate you kind of filling us in on these new products. It's exciting to hear when there's a new line coming out. It's going to be amazing. I already know you've heard these, so I'm very excited to get to experience them at some point at AXPONA or whenever it is. And it's a great brand. You guys should check out Gauder Acoustics. Amazing stuff. We've hung out on quite a few occasions.
Yes.
What was the most memorable?
Sitting at the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes, sitting at the Mexican restaurant. It was you, Spencer, me, and my wife, and we're having a good time. And unfortunately, poor Spencer cannot have jalapeno or pineapple, and that's what this Mexican restaurant was kind of specializing in. I think everything had jalapeno, everything had pineapple, and I still feel bad for Spencer. When I see him every time, I just kind of I have to apologize.
Oh, I'm taking him there next time. It was the funniest thing ever. Like going, and it was a good restaurant.
Oh, it was awesome.
They had really nice food. Where were we? Was that in
that
DC?
Was at Capitol. That was
okay.
DC.
That was in DC, and right. So I was literally going to tell the exact same story. So we're right on it. So Spencer cannot have pineapple, cannot have jalapeno. He's like, where are we going? And I'm like, we're going to this Mexican restaurant. You're going to love it. He's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to eat. Do you think everything has pineapple and jalapeno? I'm like, I don't know, Spencer. Ask the waitress. So we sit down. You got some apps, so I'm digging in because I'm not waiting. I don't care. And the waitress would come over and he'd be like, is there pineapple and jalapeno? And she'd be like, I don't know. And then this happened over and over and over. And then once he actually got food, he started looking at it. He's like, I think me. And because she sounded like she wasn't sure, even though she told him that it didn't. And he's looking at it and eating it all carefully because he's very worried about the pineapple and jalapeno. So that was a great night. It was a good time hanging out with you guys. As it always is. I remember we were sampling, different fine drinks at AXPONA last year. Actually, you might not have been there. That might have been myself and Cliff, and
I popped in for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we were having fun. That was a good time. So, but that's it. That's the end of the podcast. TJ, thank you. We had a good time.
Thanks,
We'll
Lenny.
see you guys
I appreciate it, man. Take
next
care.
time.